been almost 15 years since we first saw the Mafia game break out onto the PC is what I played it on, the City of Lost Heaven. Mafia 2 was a good game, was okay, wasn't too fantastic, but fans were very happy to see the Mafia 3 has been announced, Peter Brown. Although some of those fans took a little bit of exception to the, I guess, the focus, the character perhaps, and the time and the setting. First of all, Peter, Mafia 3, you saw some of it. What did you think of what you saw?
I mean, there are two sides to Mafia 3 that are worth talking about, right? I mean, there is the gameplay aspect where, you know, it is a game that's very much got the whole, you know, a lot of shooting, a lot of driving, you know, kind of does a lot of the same stuff that GTA does and stuff that Mafia has done in the past. But the series is taking a very interesting turn in terms of the setting and the themes. So it's set in 1960s, or 1968, I believe, and in New Orleans, which is a very iconic city for many reasons. But I think what most people are interested in, I mean, I'd like to think for better, but also, unfortunately, for worse, is the race of the main character. You play Lincoln Clay, who is he grew up an orphan, and he sort of spent his whole life searching for a family, right? You know, he joined the church, joined gangs, ultimately ended up in the army, going to the Vietnam War, and now he's on the streets of New Orleans trying to find life in the mafia scene, which is all really interesting, but you know, he is also a black man. And at that period in North America, especially in the South, racism, you know, segregation were big deals, and they presented a whole lot of difficulties for a man like Lincoln Clay. And so this subject matter is unusual for a video game. And based on the short amount of, you know, footage that I saw of the game, I don't know if Mafia 3 is gonna do this subject matter justice. But it could. I mean, we have to wait and see. It
seems like the sort of era and the sort of story that you would really need to dive into head first to do it justice. What about it, what you've seen so far, sort of let you think that perhaps they're using it more as window dressing or than really it being like the focus? What's giving you that impression right now? It's a scary prospect for any developer, you gotta say as well.
Dude, it's difficult for me to even talk about it.
Yeah.
You know, like I certainly don't represent anyone except people like myself who have my own perspective, and that is not who the main character is. But you know, to me, I can't say that I think it's just window dressing right now. I don't know that, but the issues of race come up at many points during the demo that I saw, which you know included you know racial slurs being you know thrown at Lincoln, at other characters. And it was done in such a way where the people doing it were pretty nonchalant about it, which I can only imagine was what it was like back then. I don't think that they're using that just to sort of raise alarms and stir up controversy. I think there's a really interesting discussion to have here. And you know, it's for a video game to be something that is, one, a medium for storytelling, but also a medium for, you know, at least in the case of Mafia, like action and gameplay and stuff like that, that's where I see perhaps the biggest opportunity for this to fall apart. You know, frankly, the gameplay to me compared to the story set and the setting is, I almost don't care. Like, I think there's a really interesting story to be told here.
Well, for sure, like African Americans have been not very represented in video games history. I remember probably growing up for me in Ireland, maybe the first one I really recognized was CJ in San Andreas. And then you've got a situation in which your African American character is one that's involved in criminal activities in gang culture in a fictional version of California or whatnot. We've seen it in Assassin's Creed. We've seen more African Americans. Over the course of the past couple of years, we've just seen greater diversity, or we've seen a lean towards greater diversity in video games in relation to gender and race as well. I want to talk to you about one aspect of this, which is that and I kind of hate talking about it because we're basically like recognizing what should perhaps be ignored, but like, one of the things I noticed on the video we put up at Gamescom and on your story as well is this sort of like vitriol or this backlash to it being used, almost as if the idea of having an African American by its definition as a main character was some sort of plea to appeal to like the left audience, or is some sort of like a bending of the knee to some sort of liberal ideas. What do you think about that? Does it say more to do with sort of most Caucasians that we immediately jump to that like you can't tell a story about the mafia because it's about the Italian mob with a black person?
I mean, I don't think it's one thing. From my perspective, I think it's partially fear on behalf of the audience because they might not want to be confronted with these issues. I saw several people saying, great, another game where I'm going to be told that I'm a racist or this and that.
Yeah.
And that's not why this is important. It's not to tell white people that they shouldn't be proud of who they are or whatever. But what this is an opportunity for a group of society that is very much important as any other group to have a chance to have their story told and examined. And you know what? Their perspective understood. So to see people sort of backlash at this, I think, yes, comes from a place of fear. And you know, it's also immaturity. People are veiling their argument in, you know, these are Mafia games. Like, why should it have? Why isn't it an Italian protagonist?
Why isn't Joe Pesci every video game's protagonist?
Right. Look, I think there's no place for hate in any part of society. It just doesn't do anyone any good. And if you don't identify with the character, then that's maybe not a game that you need to concern yourself with.
Yeah.
But there are plenty of people who are interested in seeing these different stories be told and participating in these discussions. So I implore people to just have an open mind and really just think about what opportunities this game presents that other games just fail to.
I guess last question about this: do you think we will start to see? I guess what we tend to see a lot of the time now is that there is more diversity in games, not just in the main protagonist, but in terms of the stories we're seeing, in terms of the different experiences we're seeing. You know, everyone's gone to the Rapture came out this week. I remember when Gone Home came out a couple of years ago, the amount of vitriol that was getting poured at that game at the time, saying this isn't a game. We're seeing a bit of that with their latest game, but it's not to the same level. So do you think that we are slowly but surely creeping towards a medium in which these types of things can be talked about and these types of games can be announced and it's celebrated, and less so than that, we're seeing less of this sort of weird, you know, overly sensitive backlash to it? Do you think we're getting there, or does it feel like it's the same as it was 5-10 years ago?
I think we're in the midst of the struggle that will turn the tide. I don't think we've gotten to the point where we're going to be able to tell these stories without there being some sort of controversy behind the announcement. People will continue to be upset about it until it becomes something that isn't an exception to the rule, but it's part of the general, you know, flow of the industry. And yeah, we're probably going to see some people, you know, try to make games because they want more diversity, and that's fine. Like, that's a worthy cause. And I think to shy away from something like that is, I don't see the value in shying away from trying to welcome more people into gaming. So, you know, I don't think it's ever going to be fair representation for all groups in society at any point. I think, you know, the majority will still, unfortunately, the majority that want to just play like a white male, you know, will continue to get what they want. But, you know, I really hope games like Mafia can come out and handle these discussions properly and show people that these are things worth having and worth discussing. But I don't think we're at that point yet where a game like this can come out and not be judged by the color of the main character's skin. That is obviously still an issue, and who knows what it's going to take. Yeah,
a tumultuous time for games, an exciting time as well. Clearly, we're seeing some games coming out there and pushing out the boat. It's not a damn sign too soon as well. Peter Brown, thank you so much for coming on.